So let's talk about the equipment that I like to use. First off, here is the Wall Senior. This is the clipper that I use to do most of my bulk cutting. Now what I mean by that is that's what I can use to cut the length down around my entire head. I also use it for fading, and I like this clipper because it doesn't get hot fast and I can do my whole entire head without having to worry about it heating up. Here I have the Walls Detailer. This is how I do my lineups. Detailers are an important tool and they help you get extremely sharp and crispy lineups. Here I have a Magic razor or razor blade holder. I got that from Sally's. Here I also have the Derby razor blades, which you can get at Sally's. And for this haircut, I'll be using a 1 and a 1.5 guard, which you can buy at Sally's as well. Here I have the Walls 5-star shaver shaper. This will get you skin bald. I'm talking about extremely bald. This is the baldest I can get my hair. It'll get you even balder than shaving with this, because with this you have to go with the grain in effort not to cut yourself. With the shaver you can go against the grain, allowing you to get a closer cut. Also I use baby brushes to brush my hair down, and also I use these because they're plastic, unlike wood brushes. If you dunk this in a jar of Barbicide, it won't expand and make your bristles fall out. So that's why I like to use these, because they're extremely easy to disinfect. Another important tool to have is a disinfectant, so that way you can disinfect your clippers when you're done using them. Hygiene is very important, so make sure that you're staying on top of that. Let's see, also I use isopropyl alcohol at the end of my cuts to disinfect myself. And let's see what else. Oh, I'm not just a fan of Wall. I also use Andis or Andes, or however you pronounce them. This is the Andis Master. This is a good clipper for fading, and that's about it. You cannot do bolt cutting with this clipper unless you work extremely fast, because this clipper overheats extremely quickly. That's the biggest con of this thing. It just gets hot so fast. This will get hot probably about 3 or 4 times faster than the Walls Detailer would. But the plus side of this is it has these notches and these grooves here to show you where you're at in your level of open and closed. This is an open guard, this is closed. So these notches help give you different levels where you're trying to fade. So that's the benefit of these, but you cannot really use them for bolt cutting at all. Also here, we have my 3-way mirror that I fastened together very tactfully, as you can see, using some duct tape, some zip ties, and some hinges, and just 3 mirrors that I picked up from Sally's. Now what is important when you're using mirrors is that you want to keep them clean. That way you can actually see what you're cutting and everything comes out much more crisp. I also have this lamp that clips to the door. My mirror, I hang on the door, and I put this here. So when I step into it, this light is in my face and I can see. And I can see in all 3 mirrors. Very useful. That's about it for the tools, so let's get back to the cutting. So these here are your regular clippers. This is what you'll be cutting the bulk of your hair with. Now with these, I usually have a pencil-like grip. If I had a pen in my hand, I'd be writing like this, but since this is bigger, of course it'll look like this. And before you even get started, you might want to see what it's like and test what it's like to maneuver the clipper around your head. So there will be 2 different techniques, especially while we're fading. One will be flicking off, and what that is when you have the clipper on, you come up, and as you can see, I have the clipper pressed to my skin. And when I flick off, I'm going to release some of that pressure and come off of the skin. So I would come off of the skin, flicking off. So you want to make sure you know how to keep that pressure on your head like this. This is to help you get an even cut. That's one way to hold it. Now when we move on to the liners, I'll show you all how to hold those as well. So the first thing that you'll need to do when you are getting ready to cut your hair is to comb out or brush or whatever it is that you need to do to get your hair pretty much the way you're going to style it. So what that means for me is I need to brush down all the hair in the direction that I'll brush it when I style it, and I also need to comb out the hair on top in the direction that I'll style it. So let me do that first. So the importance of this is that way the hair is where it needs to be when you cut it. Now, if I left this flat and I shaped it up while it was flat, when I picked it out, the next time I would pick it out, it could be uneven just because of the way that it was uneven when I cut it. So you want it to its true form and the way you'll style it, that way it comes out closer to what you want it to come out. So the first thing I'll do is the top of my head. I'm going to freehand this with clippers, and freehanding means I will not be using a guard. So if you're going to do the top of your head like this, or any area of your head like this with no guard, I highly advise again that you practice whatever grip you're comfortable with, and you just look in the mirror before you even have them on and make sure you're comfortable with using the clippers in the mirror. So the way I have it now, it's a little longer than I normally like it, so I'm going to trim some of this off. Now, if you're nervous about this or anything, start with the guard on. You don't have to go no guard. You can start with the guard and take little pieces off at a time. I'll show you what that'll look like. So I'll put a guard on and it won't cut as much. Just if you're more comfortable with guiding it, it won't cut as much hair, but it'll help you get used to that movement. Also, throughout the duration of the haircut, it's important to comb your hair again for the same reason. You want it to be where it's actually at, so that way when you cut it, it's accurate cuts and it's where you want it to be. Okay, I'm satisfied with the length. Now I'm gonna straighten this up in the front. This will just make it a little flatter in the front, so that way it's not coming forward. I'd rather it go straight up than to lump over. All right, so that's it for the top. The next thing I'll do is I'll cut the sides to the length that blends in with the top. Now for my hair type, and for most hair types, the 1.5 will do the trick. Your 1.5 guard. Now what I like to do for myself is I'll keep the clippers closed. For other hair types, you might need to keep it open, just depending on how thick it is and how much it looks like it's cutting off. So for me, a closed 1.5 will help the sides blend into the top. So I'll cut everything to this length, and this will be the ending point of my fade. So it'll be easy to have that last step already done, so it'll be easier to just blend it when you're going from bald when you already have your last point completed. So what I do when I get to the top here is I just go straight up, and I can continue into this hair here. I'm going straight up. It's not gonna cut any length off of it, but it'll box it up a little better. I'm just going straight up. I'm not going back into here. If I were to go in, it would cut the hair from down here and it would take it in much more. But I'm just flattening it out, coming from my side and going straight up. Now what I also like to do is I'll cut these corners down. I'll make sure that these are nice and short because that'll help with getting the clean line up. I also like to go across the front, not way up in here, just across the front here, because that'll also help in getting the clean line up. One important thing to pay attention to when you're cutting is the sound. You hear how much hair you're cutting, but how much noise they'll make. Okay. Pick it out again, make sure everything is good. I see something I don't like. It looks a little taller about right here, so I need to take that down. That's one of the things that'll happen when you're cutting hair. You'll see things that you don't like, so you have to be patient enough to be able to correct them. When you cut your hair, you really need to focus. So me making this video and focusing on talking during it takes away from my concentration to cutting my hair. So it probably won't be as good as if I just cut it without worrying about this video. But I'll do my best to teach you all regardless. So okay, I'm satisfied with the top now. It's possible that I'll cut it even again later on if I see something I don't like. What I also don't like is you can see this side here, it seems like it's coming out a little bit. It's not going straight up the side. So I'll correct that using no guard and just going straight on my side. Probably can't see it, but I'll do it on this side just to show you. Just going straight up. There, that's better. Now the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my initial line in here. For this haircut, I'm doing a bald fade, skin bald. Now there's different levels of bald you can get. When you use clippers and you use them all the way closed, they will not get your head as bald as detailers will get your head. Now detailers also will not get your head as bald as shavers will get your head. So I'm gonna use a shaver, then I'll use the detailer, and then this will be the next level up. In order to help with that blend, it's much more difficult if you start with a sharp bald line. So if I were to shave with that shaver and put that initial line in there, it'd be hard to blend out because the next step up doesn't cut as low as that. So what I like to do to try to make that easier is I'll start with this first and put that initial line in, and then start the balding process below that line because it'll be easier to blend that way. So first thing I do is I throw this initial line in here. Now with bald fades, I don't like to do just a straight line all the way around. I like to have it somewhat dip in the back. So that's why you'll see this line dipping. Now you want to make sure this initial line is pretty much even, that they're starting at both points. Now it's not important to have a straight line. You'll see that I have dips and bumps and peaks and valleys. That's okay, because when you blend it out, it needs to look blurry anyways. If you have a straight solid line, that's easier to see where the initial line was. So you don't have to worry about getting it straight. I see videos where people cut their line in like this, making a perfectly straight line. Those, in my opinion, are harder to blend out. So that's pretty much even. It doesn't have to be perfect, because again, we're going to blend it. It needs to be close to even, as close as you can get it. But if it's not, that's okay, because it's going to blend anyway. So the next thing I like to do, as I said, I work my way down, is now I use these shavers. And you can see the level at which my hair is right now. The shaver will cut it closer. So I told you that about 2 techniques when it comes to fading. You can either flick off the skin, or my favorite is just using the corner. Using the corner won't get everything as short. If you have the whole blade on your skin, everything below it is going to get that short. If you just use a corner, only that corner is going to get short. So what I'll do is I'll cut the bulk of my hair off, and when I get around to this section here, to this area, I'll start using the corner to put more peaks and valleys in to give the effect of a clean blend. And as you can see right now, that's the length of the hair. This is what a detailer will take it down to. So now at about this area, you might be able to see a balder line and this line coming in. So I'll use the corner and just work it out. So now that looks more blended from this section to this section. So now I work around the whole head, getting the bulk of the hair off. Very important to pay attention to the back of your neck. You don't want to leave patches and corners or anything like that. If you notice, I'm not going to do this in 2 steps. I'm not going to get most of the bulk done and then do it, and then do my point cutting. I get most of the bulk off, and then I already start my point, my corner. Get most of the bulk, get my corner. If you're starting out, you might want to do it, break it down into 2 different steps. Brush again, make sure everything is everything. Make sure everything's where it should be. Make sure you can see what lines and what needs to be cut, everything of that nature. Check the back of that neck. Make sure you ain't got no extra hair. Even if it looks like it's clean, shave it again. The back of your head may be the most important, because that's how people talk bad about you. All right, the next level down, as I stated, will be the shaver. The Walls 5-star Super Shaver. Now this will get even balder than I already am. So I'll start right here. This was done with the detailer. Now I'm going to use the shaver to show you how much shorter it gets it. Completely bald now. You'll even be able to feel a difference once you do this yourself. That's completely bald. Now the same thing, you don't want to just cut and stop. You're going to want to fan off with this one. That way you're not leaving any sharp lines. As I said, this
This cuts much shorter, so you could even use your hand to see if you feel anything. Over here, I feel like there's still some hair, so I'll go over it again. And you can hear that there's still some hair. So now the next thing I like to do is just go over it, everything again with this again, just to make sure. Not over everything, because the closer we get to the dark line, that was the regular clipper just closed. All right. Next thing I like to do is this here. This was done with the clippers closed. Now I'll open them and put another line in going up. I pretty much just raise the line. As you can see, this is the initial line. I'm just gonna raise it. And if you can see, there's still that initial line down there. So after I push this line up, I'm gonna blend that one out. You can see even more pronounced now. Get a little closer so you can see. There's this line, and there's this line. There. Now I have two lines in my head. So what I'll do is I'll go back to the original one that put this line in here, which was closed, and I'll use my corner cutting technique. Now with this, you'll notice I'll go all the way up to here, and that's fine because it's not the whole blade that's on my skin cutting. It's just that corner, and that corner is going to put peaks and valleys of this length through this line, giving it the illusion that there is no line. Brush everything, make sure that you can only see one line now. Now, if you're starting out, it's important that you can get rid of that line before you move on, because you might not remember what level you were at, and you might not remember how to get that line out. The more experience you'll get, you'll be able to look at your hair and tell where you were. All right, now there's just one line, the dark line. Now the next thing is we'll go one step up. The line that's in there was set by using no guard and having it open. So now we'll put the one on, and we'll close it. Same thing, we're gonna put another line going up. Now there's two things I want you to notice. So the hair on the side of my head isn't as thick as it is on the back of my head. As you can see here, these two lines are easier to see. But over here, this line isn't as easy to see. And that's because the thinner your hair is, the more similar it'll look at similar lengths. So everything up here, that is the 1.5. This is a 1, which isn't that much different. And with thinner hair, you won't be able to see that difference as much. The thicker the hair gets, the more you'll be able to tell, as you can right here. You can see the two lines again. So that's something to keep in mind if you have thick hair, especially if you have straight hair as well. It's easier to see the different lines when your hair is straight. In my opinion, it's a little more challenging to cut straight hair because straight hair tells all. Straight hair, really, you could tell where your lines are. With curly or kinky hair, the curls can hide where the line is. So in a way that makes cutting curly hair a little trickier because it can hide the line and you might not even notice that there's still a line, but at the same time that can make it an easier blend. Okay, so now to get rid of this line, remember that we were using the no guard open. So same thing, I'm gonna go back to the no guard, I'm gonna open it, I'm gonna use that corner cutting technique. Line's a little thick, so I'll also use the flicking off technique here. But mostly the corner is my favorite. And if you need to get more hair off, make the blades flatter on your skin. Hope you can see that, can't really tell. If you don't need to cut that much, take more of the blade off of your skin. Let me make sure you can see what I'm talking about. So if you need to cut more of the hair off, put more of the blade on. If you need to cut less, take more of the blade off. Now I'm trying to make sure that there's only one line in my head. And that's the dark line that's higher up. That's the only line I want to see right now. But luckily for me, if there was a line when I was done with this haircut, I'll be able to tell what length I need to use. And if you're not sure, always start higher and work your way down to the length that it might be. And always make sure you know what you're cutting with. If you put the clippers down and you're about to cut again, make sure you check you know what you're doing. There was times when I first learned how to cut my hair, I'd forget to put the guard back on, and I cut way shorter than it needed to be, and I would just ruin the whole haircut. All right, now there's about just one line. Still a little remnants of this one. I'm gonna buff that out. Also, another strategy is to even go shorter than what I was. And I'll use even more of the corner. And that'll really make sure I got everything down to what it needs to be. Okay, now there's just one line. And this line was established with using the closed one. So now I use the open one. Now the open one is the last step before the closed 1.5. So this will pretty much almost complete my fade. And when I'm getting closer to the 1.5, I use the corner. Oh, I catch it. There's still somewhat of a line down here. Now I remember where I was. I was at about a closed guard. But to make sure, I'll start with the open. That way I don't cut it too short. The open's not really eradicating that line like I want to, so I'll close it about halfway. There, I could even hear it cutting now. Still not cutting enough. I'll go all the way closed. Closed still really ain't getting what I want. So I'll go the one more step down. Using these. There we go. Everything else looks pretty good. Now I need to finish bringing that open one around the rest of my head. Again, before you start, make sure it's open. The younger me probably would have made it sure, or wouldn't have made sure and saw that it was closed, wouldn't even notice, and would have cut my hair too high up. Now this region in my hair, about right here, you can see it's really tall. That was missed with the 1.5, so I'm not gonna try to get rid of that using the open one. I'm gonna switch guards when I get back up there and use that to bump the rest of that extra hair down. Make sure I go back to closed. Make sure everything looks good to you. That doesn't look too good for me. I'm gonna buff that up some more. I'm using the open guard. I'll go back down to closed. There. Much better in my opinion. Now it's time for the lineup. So when it comes to lining yourself up, this is where it's really important to make sure you have your hair brushed in the direction you want it to go. Now when you're holding these, I like to hold them like this. And make same thing. You might want to make sure you know how to maneuver the clipper before you start the cutting. Technique with this is to place the clipper, bring down, lift, place the clipper, bring down, lift, very lightly. You're not digging this into your skin at all. You're just barely touching on it. Just lightly As light as you can, that's how you want to do it. Especially on this corner, it's important to make sure your hair is brushed. It'll make that line much sharper. Especially if you have curly hair. Straight hair, once it's cut, brushing ain't really gonna do nothing because your hair is already where it's gonna lay. All right, now you wanna try to get these two nice and even. Naturally, my hairline is almost even, but this one needs to come up just a tad bit higher to match this one. So what I like to do is I like to start my corner, start it, and then come from the bottom and make it connect. Using an arcing motion, starting, coming up, turning that corner, coming down. Brush the hair, make sure it's all there. Now of course this is bald down here, so you can't really tell. Same thing, I like to get that started, but I'll show you the other technique. The other technique is you can just go all the way down from once you started. Or you can come up and go down, or you can come up. Might be wise to master both techniques. All right, and that's pretty much it. Thank y'all for tuning in. I hope I helped you all learn something today. Hopefully, if you do know how to cut your hair, this gave you some tips and some pointers on other ways you can do it. If you're just starting out, remember to be patient, take your time, because this is a skill and it does take some practice to get used to. Thank you all again for tuning in. I hope you all have a blessed day. Blessed day. A very blessed day. You heard me? My apologies, I almost forgot to show you all one more thing. That's how to use a straight razor on yourself. Now, if you're a beginner, might as well turn off the video. You're gonna definitely wanna learn how to use this before you even try it. So definitely don't try to line yourself up until you get some practice in using it, shaving other things, maybe your thigh or something. That's how I learned. I literally shaved my thigh for a couple times before I even thought about taking this blade to my face. So if you have no experience with this, I would not try it on my forehead at first. But for those of you who do have some experience, I figured I'd show you anyways. So, as you can see, from my glistening skin, I already have oil on my skin, so I don't ever use a shave gel or shave cream because the oil on my face acts as a blade glide. So, with using the straight razor, it's just important that you take your time. The only time I have cut myself with this before, put little nicks in there, and what I did wrong was, let me take the blade off to show you. What I did wrong is I'd have the blade on my skin, and instead of lifting the blade off, I slid it over. I lifted it off a little bit, but slid it over by not paying attention and by rushing myself. So it's very important, even if you do already know, but you never use it on yourself, it might be important to take the blade out and just practice using it on yourself. And it's also very important that you keep your skin tight. So you pull that skin down, shave up, Pull the skin down, shave up. Now let's put a blade in here. If I can grab it. If you don't know, this is how they go in. This piece comes out. And you just place your blade in like so. It just fits in those slots. Slide it on in. Now this is something that should not take much effort. You don't want to cut anything. You're gliding it. It's taking hair as you glide. Lift the blade, go to another spot. Lift the blade, go to another spot. Lift the blade, go to another spot. Lift. This doesn't take much effort at all. I'm just sliding the razor. So when I'm doing this part, I'm pulling this way. You want to pull in the opposite way that you're cutting. The blade's going this way, so I'm pulling skin this way. Same thing over here. Blade's coming this way, so I'm pulling skin this way. Now what's also important is hygiene when it comes to this. You want to use, if you're wondering why barbers use alcohol, it's an antiseptic, kills bacteria. Now when you use clippers and a shaver and detailers, all those things can put microabrasions in your skin. Those little nicks, those little cuts. You might not really be able to feel them, but either way, it still opens your skin, allowing bacteria to get in there. So this cleans out all those cuts and scrapes and little microabrasions that you might not even see or feel. And that's also why it burns so much. Sometimes. Some barbers have a very light hand and their clippers don't bite. So the alcohol might not even really affect you. Not to brag, my hand is pretty light. As you can see, I'm applying this alcohol to myself and my skin's not turning red. If your skin turns red right after that alcohol hits you, it's probably because you might have some nicks and abrasions and your skin's reacting to it. That's what that burn is. The alcohol getting into those little nicks. So if it's stinging, that means bacteria might have gotten in there too. So that's the purpose of using this stuff, to get it all out. So I think now I finally finished showing you all everything. I don't know if you could tell, but after I turned the light off and got to observe my head, there was a little bit of a line. I corrected that off camera because it was just very hard to see with this bright light that's going on behind me. But most important thing when you're cutting your hair is to stay patient. It might take you 2 hours. I don't know the longest time it's ever taken me, but that's beside the point. Point is that you stay patient, you don't get frustrated. When you get frustrated, you'll start rushing. When you start rushing, you start messing up and putting errors in your own head. So thank you all again for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one.